why the half midnight? Sham Yada Sinna the Island. Sinna came down to Umay's Island. This Sinna is bilateral Sinna. It's even if I hate the guy, even hate the guy for very evident reason, and the guy hates the Yid. In fact, Rashi uses the word halach. Halach is the yadua she'esav saying eliyank. It's a halach. It's a halach. Miyana. The sin that the Rabbanim Shlomo made it that way. The moshe brings them, writes a chalm that he has that the Rabbanim Shlomo makes a sinna between the tzaddik and the rasha, so that should preserve the tzaddik. He shouldn't associate with the rasha, and he shouldn't, and nothing of the rasha should rub off from him. And he says, Hafti es Amar Hashem, last week's Torah, Valad Achasev Yankov, Yankov and Esav were brothers, and they were together in the womb, and something should have rubbed off from each one on the other one, but still didn't rub off. But I have this, Yankov is Esav tonight, for this same reason. So, you got the guy, so, and then, before it was the Mashiach, we know that there is going to be the Shoyim that will depart totally from the Rabbanim Shlomo. You have that in the last Navi, Malachi, he talks about it, and also in the end of the Niyah, that he talks about the Rishoyim that will be just before the Geula. The Niyah was the Navi of the Geula. And he tells us when the case will be. He makes a mathematical cheshbon and tells us exactly when the Mashiach will be. That the Malach taught him for the mathematical cheshbon. And then he says, he didn't understand. He was taught, he was given the Zman. He still doesn't understand the actions. Nobody knows. But when the Mashiach will come, we'll be able to know Pshat and those cheshbonos. So, now, we are now in Nichlas of the Mashiach, in the last lap of our journey in Golus. The Chafetz Chaim, in this time, said that we already came to the period that the Gemara calls Nichlas of the Mashiach. And he's right that we see the Semanim of it. The Semanim, which the Gemara in Seit and also in Chaylik describes the conditions that will be prevalent in Nichlas of the Mashiach. Now, of course, the Chafetz Chaim said that about 70 years ago. But in history, 70 years is less than a day. The period of Nichlas of the Mashiach could take 100 years. That's the period. So we are now in this period. So about 100 years ago, the new something appears in Israel which isn't duplicated in history. That the life of Klal Yisrael departed from the Rabbeinu Shalom to the point of apikos. We do find in the times of Tanakh that the life of Klal Yisrael are only avodah zarah, but he still believed in the Rabbeinu Shalom. There was a certain temptation to worship the avodah zarah, a temptation which can't be understood. There was a yetzhara for avodah zarah. The Anshei Knesset for the Zoyle were mazato that yetzhara to avodah zarah. So today we don't have that temptation. There are certain temptations which don't make any sense. Why should a person be attracted to drugs? Doesn't make any sense. The person who indulges in drugs knows that he's doing wrong, but he can't help himself. He has the vayeitzei. The person who smokes, he knows that by the average, he's giving away 10 years of his life. But what can he do? He's a slave to his temptation. But this was temptation. They believed in the Rabbeinu Shalom, and we see that. By Achav, we see that way he was mechabik the Torah, and they went to the Navi. He had a yetzhara by the Zarah. Also, there was a very strong yetzhara to Araya. And the Anshei Knesset of Zoyle were mispalo for that, and they weakened that yetzhara to Araya. In other words, the yetzhara to avodah zarah was completely removed, but Araya was watered down. It isn't as strong as it used to be. But now, in our era, Abikus of the Mashiach, it's not avodah zarah. It's minus, it's atheism, it's apikos, not believing. Starting off with the Haskalah movement that started off in Germany, the Dava Pella, what's his name? The Oyas Sameach, in his Sefer on Chumash, Meshech HaChachma, writes that this Haskalah movement started off in Germany, and from Germany will start the punishment for this Haskalah movement. And many years after the Oyas Sameach was messed up, this became true, because it was Germany that wiped out Mamish the entire European Judaism. So the departure from the belief in the Rabbeinu Shalom. So along came this character Herzl, and he was looking for a solution to the Jewish problem. Two people were looking for a solution to the Jewish problem. Hitler in his time, and Herzl, the Jew, in his time. And Herzl came up with the solution that Eden must have their own country, they must have their own nation, their own language, and be a nation among nations, gain respect. There shouldn't be any more dubbed as the wandering Jew. And then anti-Semitism is going to be eradicated. No more anti-Semitism. The funny thing is, the Medinat Yisrael is the very cause of anti-Semitism today. Anti-Semitism is cleared up now. They took a poll in Europe. What causes trouble in the world? More than 50% says Israel. You probably read the paper, so you heard. The state of Israel. He wanted to solve the problem of Sinas Yisrael for the Jewish nation. Adarabah, this Jewish nation produces Sinas Yisrael. Again, because of Kinna and Sinna. It's so ironic that whenever the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, they tried to defend themselves, and they went in, and they tried to make Seder in the Arab communities from where the Intifada comes. And of course, whenever there's war, there are victims who saw their casualties. So there were a few women and a few children. Once the UN and everybody in the gun and America and Bush condemned it and so on, don't defend yourself. Let them kill you. You can't defend yourself. Yeah. Now America is doing the exact same thing in Iraq. They're killing women and children because they're going after the terrorists. And American made. Jews still understand. They can't, even can't defend themselves. There's so much hypocrisy. Why? That's the lot. That's the Geirel of Klal Yisrael. Sinas Yisrael. There's a pasuk, the last pasuk in Tamanya Afi into heaven. So the Rebbe Rabbanim said in the Tilim, on the cloth, there's no Nekudas. You see the Medrash does it very often. The Medrash changes the Nekudas. So she said there was an agape in the jungle. So all the Chayas got together. Did I tell you the story? Yeah. All right, you know the story. All right. You don't know the story? All right. So for one Yid, which is Olam Malay, I'm going to repeat the story. So all the Chayas got together, and they made a meeting to find out who was responsible for this Magaifa. There must be somebody doing an Aveda in the jungle. And they the lion, the bear, and the tiger, they were the business. And Aedis should come and testify or make a grand jury who is doing an Aveda that because of that there's a Magaifa in the jungle. So a certain beast gets up and says that he saw the way a leopard ate up a child. So the Besdin gets together in the huddle and they come out and say the leopard is innocent because what do you want? He's a leopard. And that's what a leopard is. Another one gets up and says he saw the way a wolf snatched the chicken out of the coop and went off with it. The Paskin beast passed off. He's a wolf, and he was hungry, and that's what the chicken is for. So somebody gets up and says he saw the way there was a poor shepherd who had a hole in his shoe, and he stuffed up that hole with straw to help him somewhat. And then he wanted to take a rest. He took off his shoe and he fell asleep under a tree. Along came a sheep and ate up the straw from his shoe. Ooh, he's a pope. Now we know why there's a Megazah. Because of that sheep. The Isik is the cash. So, and the Eden, they're the culprit. All the trouble in the world comes from the Eden. If there's a black plague in the medieval times, it's the Eden. The Eden didn't suffer from the plague, which eradicated, I think, a third if I remember correctly, of the entire European population, Yidden didn't suffer. Because Yidden are sanitary. Yidden wash and feel if you die, and you can go to the mikveh, and you can keep clean, and Yidden aren't allowed to daven when they're not clean, and they wash their hands. So they didn't suffer. So if the Yidden, so there was big pogroms on the Yidden because they caused the black plague. Yidden are always to cope. They're the kabbalah. In our Sevra, we have the mindset that Yankov came to Lavan and he made his fortune here, became rich in Lavan's house. What do we have at the end of the story? That the Yishma Yankov is B'nai Lavan. He heard them talk among themselves that Yankov, Achal Yankov is Kol Shali Azinu, U'Me'Shali Azinu Asas Kol HaChayil Avdeh. Yankov is the parent. He took everything from our father. Whatever he has belongs to our father. Now, they themselves are the product of the B'zacha from Yankov. They themselves, like Yasha brings, for Yishmas Kavnei Lavan, that when Yankov came to Adam, Lavan wasn't blessed with sons. He had no sons. And because of the B'zacha of Yankov, he was able to have sons. So they themselves, these sons are the product of the B'zacha of Yankov. In fact, you have the Haidraz Baudin that Lavan himself said to the Yankov, Nichashti, Vayeitzei Hashem B'Gvalecha. My keshet tells me that you brought me the B'Gvalecha. Lavan prospered through the coming of Yankov. Now, the Torah cannot be understood without Torah Shebe'al Peh. Torah Shebe'al Peh belongs only to the Yidden. The Bible, the Goyim also have, but they don't have the Torah Shebe'al Peh. With our Torah Shebe'al Peh, we understand the Parasha of Yankov. The Rebbe Shlomo loved Yankov. And I explained last week, if you look in the Chumash, you see that Esav is a better man than Yankov. Lavan is a better man than Yankov. Yankov cheated. First he cheated Esav from his brachas. Then he cheated him, and then before that he cheated him from his bechayla. And here he goes and makes all those carvings on the wood to cheat away the sign of Lavan. Yankov is a cheater. But the Torah says, no, Tidin Emes Yankov. Yankov is the Ish Emes. Yankov Ish Tam. But the Goyim always accuse us of being the cheater. You know, this, they have this play by Shakespeare where this character, Shylock, he was a Jew, and he lent money on Jesus, and the poor borrower didn't have any money, and the tnai was that if he doesn't pay, so he has to pay the 2 pounds of his flesh. So Shylock has 2 pounds of this guy's flesh cut out, and that was his payment. You know, and these are the stories, and this is the literature, the highest form of literature of the guy. Who doesn't read Shakespeare? I mean, it's studied in all these schools and colleges. As a young, they have this idea that Yidden are the Shylock, Yidden go among the Goyim, and they get rich, and they're the parasites, and they suck the blood of the Goyim, and the poor Goyim they become paupers, and the Yidden become rich, which is true, because Yidden are clever. The fact is, the guy must be made. It's proven that Yidden on the average have a higher IQ than the Goyim. Yidden are clever, Yidden are industrious, and Yidden are resourceful. And wherever they go, they're Matzliach in business. And the guy that isn't Matzliach in them. All through the ages, the finance ministers of all the kings were Yidden, because they were the able ones that were able to have a prosperous finance, and the Goyim prospered because of them, and then the other ministers became jealous, and they made Bilbulim on the finance ministers. We have many stories like that, and they were put to death because of the Bilbul, because they saw that he put poison in the air or whatever he did, or that he took the Avodah and spit on it, and there was, of course, it was always available aid to attest to it, and so Yidden are the parasites. What we know, what the Torah tells us about Yankov Hashem, Yankov's intention was never to cheat love. How did Yankov become rich? The Rashi says it in the Sadra, he brings it from Chazal, that the Malachim actually draw cheek to Yankov from Lavan's herd. And when a Malach brings sheep, you can keep it, not the Allah, you can keep it. It's a matter of the Zuto Shalyam. Nobody, if you ever learned what we see, he would know. There's no mitzvah of a Shabbos later. There is big pumpkin. I'm a little afraid to go into it because it would require a lot of explanation. But still, I think it's a hechlich to just fleetingly be master a little Indian over here. That we don't know the status of the B'diyah. They're so complicated. There's so much to it. We don't understand the way that Rabbeinu Shalom conducts the affairs of the world. And when we see things which we don't understand, we have kasha. We have kasha. The time is going to come when all the kashas will be very correctly and we're going to have the solution to all these kashas. The Aliyah Kodesh tells us in the Beit on the Zayah that the Zayah Hamado were big neshamas, heilige neshamas, from a big mother. But being that they came down in this world, they became polluted from the Zayham, from the filth of this world. And they became the Zayham. So they were wiped out. But their neshamas, of course, remain. The neshamas are big neshamas. The Banish item is going to be misaking these neshamas. these neshamas must ultimately come to a tikkun. So these neshamas came down again, and they became the Derech HaFlag. And then they were mekalkal the Derech HaFlag. The Rebbe is still not giving up on that. It's still on the Rabbeinu Shalom's plan, in fact. They came down again, and they were the Anshe Zayin. They became the Anshe Zayin. And that's the Avraham Avinu was misfollowed for them, because these were Heilig and Misham. And it says by the Anshe Ha'ir, Anshe Zayin, the Saba Arabayat. Anshe Ha'ir, the Rabbeinu Bechaya brings it in Parshas Vayeitzei, and it's from the Zayah. Anshe Ha'ir means the people of the people of the Derech HaFlag. They are the Anshe Zayin. They are the Gilgul incarnation of the Anshe Zayin, of the Anshe Derech HaFlag. And they were mekalkal, and they were wiped out. They came down again in the sheep of Yankov, in the sheep of Lavan, and they were megulgul on those sheep. But these were Heilig and Neshamas. And Yankov Avinu had to go down to Charan, to Lavan, to redeem these sheep and bring them back to a tikkun. And the Medrash says, very innocently, that how much sheep did that Yankov get what does his herd consist of? 600,000 sheep, which is Shishim Reading the Yisrael. So the Avodah by Yankov was to extricate these sheep from Lavan, where they were Bashivya in captivity by the Sifra Achra, by the Satan, and bring them to a tikkun. Yankov Avinu fled to Lavan. Why didn't? So when he came to Shem V'Yavel, nobody knew where he is. So Esav couldn't pursue him to kill him. In fact, the Lashon of Rashi is many times, it's the Lashon of the Gemara, the Nitman the Shem V'Yavel. He was in hiding. But when he came to Lavan, he wasn't in hiding. And Lavan was a good friend of Esav. Isaiah asks, why didn't Esav come to Lavan to kill Yankov? So the Isaiah answers that Lavan was the Merkava of the Samach Men. He was the chair of the Satan alone. He was the Rasha Bera. And this Lavan, so Esav thought, I don't have to go to Lavan to take Nekam and Yankov. Lavan will take care of it better than I can. And Lavan wanted to do that. But the Rebbe didn't let him. The Rebbe protected Yankov. And Yankov Avinu was Mekayim the mitzvahs. The Lavan got to the Tayag mitzvah Shemot. But before Matan Torah, the Tzaddikim had an option to be Mekayim mitzvahs in a different way than we are Mekayim. Because mitzvahs are really oiris. A mitzvah that we do is a pa'ula which registers by Shemayim, because it's like pushing a button. You push a button and the light goes on the ceiling. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows what the mitzvahs are. The Tayak mitzvahs are really Tayak switches. Imagine that you're in the Twin Towers, and you're in the basement, and you push the main switch, and the entire Twin Towers become illuminated because you were at the switch. Every mitzvah is a switch. It turns on a certain light b'shamayim. But the switch can come in many forms according to the style. The Rebbeinu Shalom, we are not smart enough. We don't have a deep understanding in Torah to know how to manufacture that switch. So the Rebbeinu Shalom teaches us. He teaches us to put on a mezuzah. He teaches us to put on tefillin. He tells us to make kiddush and to have sherish and to have nishna lechem and to bench lechem and to make kisi adam. Every mitzvah creates certain oyreis v'shamayim, and these oyreis come down again to us in the form of hashpa'is tayvos, a bounty. We don't know how to do it. The Rebbeinu Shalom has to direct us. But the other civilization who were massing the entire Torah, they knew. But they had the option to make their own switches. When Yankov Avinu made the psalm, the stripes on the sticks, and he carved out and he peeled off the bark and made the stripes on those sticks, he didn't need to cheat from Lavan. That's how he was Mikayim Mitzvah Tzvila. The Zayah with these Tzalim ala Maklais, that was his way of being Mikayim Mitzvah Tzvila. And the way we make the black on our skin, the black kasuai, that was the psalim, the peelings that Yankov made on the maklais. And that's how it was Mikayim Mitzvah Tzvila. It wasn't for cheating. And the way Rashi brings and the Midrashim say that these sheep that Yankov got wasn't because it was trickery. The Malachim brought it to him, and all the sheep that Lavan gave to Yankov were infertile. They couldn't have any children anyway. That was Lavan's trickery. The Lavan kept on cheating and always changing what the schar will be. In Koyi Nekudin Yisracha Vayodakar say Nekudin. Then Koyama Akudin Yisracha Vayodakar say Makudin. But Vayatza Hashem as Nikni Avichem Vayitnoli, the Rebbeinu Shalom extricated. He redeemed the Nikni Avichem who were Jewish neshamas, and he gave them to me. So actually, the Yankov went to become Pidyon Shvuyim by Lavan, to extricate these neshamas from the Sitra Achra and bring them to the Tik. When Yankov Avinu had these 600,000 sheep, who were 600,000 neshamas, he knew that he can go. He brought these sheep and with him to Mitzrayim. And then these sheep, after being treated by Yankov Avinu, they became human beings again. And these are the Yidden from Mitzrayim, the Klal Yisrael of Mitzrayim, who once were the Dair HaMabu and the Dair HaFlaga and the Yanshe Zank. He brought them to the Tik. And then these Yidden were Zaycha to Yitzias Mitzrayim at the Matan Torah, and that's us. So that was the entire Indian of Yankov Avinu by Lavan. He didn't cheat from Lavan. Lavan tried to cheat him. The Alshech HaKadosh was a Meidatik Hadash. And I enjoy very much learning the Alshech. Beautiful Biyurim and Chumash and Tanakh. And he was called the Alshech HaKadosh, the Heilige Alshech. There aren't too many Yidden that was Zaycha to the distinction of being called HaKadosh. Very, very great Yidden were there, without being called HaKadosh. Yidden have Ruach HaKadosh, they know whom to call HaKadosh. We have Rabbeinu HaKadosh, we have Rashi HaKadosh, Yidden say Rashi HaKadosh, we have the Vashem HaKadosh, the Alshech HaKadosh, the Yari HaKadosh. That's what we have. He was HaKadosh, and he used to say beautiful drashas. he lived in Tzfas between 400 and 500 years ago, together with the Ariya Kadosh. And he used to say a drasha every Shabbat on the Seder for the townspeople. And Ariya Kadosh once came to his drasha. And the Ariya, and it was Pasha's vayeitzei. And the Ariya Kadosh smiled the entire drasha. And the Talmidim who saw the Ariya Kadosh smiling were wondering, why is the Ariya Kadosh smiling? It's true that the Alshach said a beautiful drasha, but that's nothing compared to what the Ariya Kadosh could say. The Ariya Kadosh was much, much, much bigger than the Alshach. So why was he so happy with that drasha? So the Ariya Kadosh answered, the drasha, all right, it didn't so much excitement. But something happened by the drasha. The Alshach, it says in the Gemara that he changed, that he tricked me. So the Gemara says it means 10 times 10. 100 tricks Lavan played on Yankov to destroy him and to take away everything from him, to rob everything, and none of these tricks worked. So the Alshach, being the Daik from the Psukim, explained all of these tricks that Lavan did. And for the Psukim, he showed us what the tricks are. You know who came to the drasha? The Ariya Kadosh tells us Talmidim, Lavan came. And you listen to the drasha, in the Shem of Lavan. And every time that the Alshach HaKadosh came up with a new trick that Lavan played on Yankov, the Lavan nodded his head and he was made it's true. He was Machal Sorianos. I tried that trick on him, but it didn't work. So that's why the Ariya Kadosh smiled. Anyway, this is so what do so after and still with all the riches that Yankov Avinu got from Lavan, still Lavan prospered, and Lavan alone was made by Varchei Hashem B'Gvaracha. Since you came, I became blessed. But the Bnei Lavan were Mekana Yankov. Yankov is a parasite. Me'asher v'yavinu asas kalachayel azeh. Yankov cheated our father, and whatever all the fortunes that Yankov has, he stole from our father. Here Yankov comes and makes Lavan rich. Here Yankov comes, and like the story by all the kings in Europe, he becomes Lavan's finance minister. And he makes Lavan rich. And they have a time for Yankov. Yankov is cheating. Yankov is betraying. Yankov is not loyal. They have dual loyalty. Whatever they say about the Yid. This is the geisel of Yidden in the Galus. That Yidden are the parasites, and Yidden are the ones who are malave the ribes. They lend money with interest, medical interest, compounded and compounded. Of course, the Yidden made a living from interest, because Yidden historically and naturally were an agricultural nation. Our forefathers were Isaac and grazing and the grazing of sheep. They were and that's what the Isaac told. That's told to Parai. Lachain, because they're shepherds. After that, they came to Eretz Yisrael and they became an agricultural nation. But in the Galus, the Goyim did not allow Yidden to have farms and to have real estate. And they So therefore, they had to look for a famine in business and in banking and in other such related locations. They had to look for a famine how to make a living. So they became bankers, and they became malavi bereavers. They lent with interest because the Goyim didn't allow them to have property, and they were very limited until. We know our Zaydas tell us that in Europe there were certain restrictions, and you weren't allowed to go into the big cities unless they had a license, and they had to be back at nightfall. You weren't allowed to live in the cities except in ghettos. There was a little court. And they were tramped in the ghettos, and they weren't allowed to live comfortably. So, of course, no agriculture and no farming. So they had to be basic in money in Yemen, in finances. So it's the Goyim that made it that way. But Adarab, the Goyim prospered because of this. Like Yankov says, at the end of the Sedra, when Yankov is arguing with Laban, when you had this conversation between Yankov and Laban, and Yankov says to him, and he points his finger at him, and he tells him, Hashem, you know that when I came to you, that I disobeyed you, and you prospered. And now you say that I got it from you. So this is the Goyim of Klal Yisrael in the Golus. We are hated. There is no solution to it. Herzl can't bring a solution, and communism won't bring a solution. Any solutions that the departers of the departers from Torah sought to put forward, no solutions help. We are in Golus, and Rabbeinu Shalom keeps us in Golus, and there is a Gzeira in Golus that the Goy hates us, so that we shouldn't assimilate. And never, now, in Nikras of the Mashiach, when the picture changed and we do have freedom, we do see the havoc which is caused by our freedom. In America, assimilation is over 50%. In France and in other such nations in South America, it's over 80%. Because this has been the preservative of Yankov went to the Golus, and his being in Beis Laban is pilot Yaini. It's like a Futurama. It's like a mirror of how Yidden are going to be in the Golus. Yidden are going to be in the Golus. They're going to be persecuted. They're going to be trodden upon. They're going to be blamed for all the misfortunes and for all the plagues. They're going to be accused of being parasites and of sucking out all the blood of the guy and cutting 2 pounds of his flesh and making literature out of it, and this is how Yidden are in the Golus, and nobody can change it. The Goyim hate us. If we don't have any country, the Goyim hate us. We do have a country, the Goyim hate us still more. As far as Medina Yisrael is concerned, it's something beautiful. It's something which we can't fathom what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. You see, the Yad Hashem in Eretz Yisrael. After the Holocaust in Europe, Eretz Yisrael opened up, and Eden started streaming into Eretz Yisrael. It now became the fortress of Torah and of Yiddishkeit. Torah is now in Eretz Yisrael. Torah had many stations during the Galus. It had a Sarah Galuyot. The Gra said that the last station of Torah, Torah migrated. It was from Eretz Yisrael, it went to Babel. And from Babel, it went to Europe, to France and to Germany, and to Spain. And after the Redifais, it moved northward to Poland and to Russia and all those countries around. And when that became, and the Gra said about 200 years ago that America will be the last Galus of Torah. Torah came to America. I remember 70 years ago, I was a big boy then. So there was no Torah in America. After the war, the Yidden started, the influx of the remnants of the survivors of the concentration camps came. And I lived in Williamsburg then, and Williamsburg became a near the Avi Yisrael, such a wonderful concentration of Gedolei HaTorah HaSidkus. I don't think it ever was duplicated. Wherever you went on any street, you had Gedolei HaTorah. What did I do in New York? You had the Satner of Miklas and the Geraben and the Skler of Hebe and the big Rosh Hashivas who came, Rabban Kotler and Rabbi Avram Kamenovich, and if you don't see it in the window, ask for it. You had everybody. You had such a choice where to go. And you was able to go every Shabbos to somebody else's fish, and every Sunday to somebody else's shiur. And the Torah was built up, and Yiddishkeit was built up, rebuilt in America. It lasted about 30 or 40 years, and now the Galus of Torah seems to start to have ended. Now it's an Eretz Yisrael. Torah came back to Eretz Yisrael. There's no question about it. That Torah and Yerushalayim and Hasidus and Musa are now in Eretz Yisrael much more than in America. I mean, what's going on? We don't know. It's something that's magnificent. On one hand, so much kashes. The leadership in Eretz Yisrael are pure, certified Abikam. And they're out to fight against the Torah. They're struggling to be machriv the Torah in Eretz Yisrael. And the Torah prevails. Torah Manatzayach. Torah is getting stronger and stronger in Eretz Yisrael. More and more. Now, they with all those kitzutzim in the budget, they are trying to strangle Torah. But the Rebbeinu Shleiman, he takes care of the Torah. Don't worry about it. What's happening now in Eretz Yisrael? What part Eretz Yisrael plays in the drama of Galus and Geula, we don't know. The picture is being in the middle of the painting. We're seeing black splashes, but we don't know how beautiful the picture is going to be when it's finished. Something is going on now. Nobody understands what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. Only the Rebbeinu Shleiman, who is doing it certainly in a very wonderful way, that when the picture is finished, we're going to see and understand every step and every part of this puzzling we'll come to understand it later. But something's going on. There are so many steers. On one side, we have the those who want to make Charav Torah analysis on Yiddishkeit analysis. On the other side, we have Torah, which is flourishing and growing. And what is happening now with the Arabs and with the roadmap and with the Geneva Mishigas or whatever? We don't know what's going on. But the Banishradim knows. And the Banishram has a master plan, and it's a gorgeous plan, like all the other plannings that were visual, that came to fruition, all since mindset ratios. Something very wonderful is going on in Eretz Yisrael now. We're perplexed. We don't know what's happening, and we're waiting to see the Rabbi Shalom's final solution. When the Rabbi in Gayol and Shabbat Hashem, the Yankiv Nam Hashem,
for a share on the topic of a lesson for the